Good afternoon and welcome to riverwestradio.com. It is Friday, December 14th, and we are starting the show off with a bang. You may not have been aware of something that happened today. Unfortunately, another national tragedy has occurred. I have Dan Lozzi live on the phone with me calling from, I believe you're in Massachusetts, Dan, correct?
Yep, that's where I am.
Dan, I was going to go over some of the information that came to us today. Are you familiar with the tragedy that occurred this morning?
Yeah, in Connecticut, the shooting. Another clown college event. Not to desensitize or make a joke out of it, but you guys, my people know my views by now. This is, it's embarrassing more than anything else that this is how we behave now in this country.
It is for people who are just getting home and haven't had a chance to plug into the news today. Unfortunately, there was a shooting in Sandy Hook Elementary School, which is in Newtown, Connecticut. 20 children, and they believe they are the kindergarten class, were killed. 18 on site, 2 later in area hospitals. 6 adults. The gunman took his own life, and apparently he also took the life of another family member in Newtown. And I'm going to assume it was prior to him appearing at the school. This happened at 9:30 this morning. And I will say, Dan, I know you've been very busy this afternoon. I did get to catch the president's address, and it was a very brief.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And, I mean, I was a little bit moved, honestly. I felt that he, letting us see as a nation his tears, was pretty good.
Well, Caitlin, here's the deal. I walk a tight. I mean, you've become familiar with my material by now. And
yes.
It's always a very edgy tightrope, and I think it's probably gained me more credibility with people, the way I deliver my ideas. I only have a few minutes here, as I
Absolutely.
told you. I'm speaking tonight up the road. I have a gig, so I can give you a couple minutes, and I do got to fly. But here's what I think, Caitlin. I'm already seeing the cliches, like, the president's sad, the flags at half-mast, this is a horrible tragedy. I'm exhausted with it, and I'm exhausted at hearing it, because, this is, as I've said many times, this is a weekly occurrence. Even if it doesn't make the big news, somewhere someone's throwing a baby down the stairs, beating up their wife, shooting their mom because their mother told them to clean their room or whatever. And we can have all the discussion. Some people are for gun laws, some people are against gun laws. To me, that's not even the problem. The issue is, what is going on in this country at this point? Again, Caitlin, I'll put it to you this way, and this is going to sound brutal, all right? I'm up here in New England. I will guarantee you, Sunday afternoon when the Patriots game comes on, about 75% of New Englanders will say, what shooting? They won't even be thinking about it.
Are you serious? You really don't think that the media is going to let it die down?
I believe that, yeah. I believe that. I stand by that. As brutal as that is, will the news come back on that night? Yeah. Will they know there was a shooting? But my point is this, Caitlin. We have, I heard a guy on one of the talk shows. I said this country has an attention span of about a week. Okay.
That is really sad.
And Caitlin, I don't mean that to sound offensive.
Oh no, absolutely. If you're telling the truth,
if what I'm saying was not real, we would have put an end to all this and started getting together. Like I said, to me, it's embarrassment at this point. I'm just embarrassed with how we behave. This, like I've said before, it's like copycat stuff. This is an option that people are given. You're angry, something's hurt you, so you kill people now.
This is incredible. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did I just hear you call it an option? And I think you're right. I think
it is an option, and I said it last time I was on your show too. It's an option. The bringing the gun to the school, bringing the gun to work, killing the family member because they looked at you the wrong way. It's an option now, and you can kill yourself after you do it too, and you don't have to answer to anybody. It's part of the game now. It's part of America. Again, Caitlin, I know my words are really brutal, but it's like, and what I said about the Patriots and all that, but where else do we go with this? I mean, I don't know what else to do but to be as blunt as possible. I'm exhausted with it. I'm hurt. And anyone who gets offended by my words, I take it with a grain of salt when people take offense to my style. You know why? Because I do this around the clock. I don't stop thinking about this a month from now. I've dedicated my life to trying to figure out all this. And,
of course,
people, when you immerse yourself and then you start getting bitter after a while, Caitlin, again, here's an example. Watching the news, everyone's shaking their head. What a tragedy, what a tragedy. And then they roll a clip of little kids describing what was going on in the school. And it's like, these news reporters have this, they got tears in their eyes. They can't figure this out. But then, to me, it's like, why you really went up to the little kids and interviewed them? I mean,
yeah.
Caitlin, this whole country, including myself, Dan Lozzi, every one of us really needs to take a long look in the mirror. Because it's like with the hockey. Hitting is bad. Don't hit, kids. Don't hit. But then when the hockey game comes on, it's totally cool for everyone to punch each other.
Yeah, I know.
There's just so many double-standard, two-faced talking in this country.
I agree. I have to agree. And part of the reason I thought it would be good to hear from you, especially today, in the light of another one of these occurrences, is that people who are frustrated, who are looking for a way to start making a change, looking for other like-minded people, because I think a lot of individuals have lost hope that they're alone, or there's only a few.
Caitlin, listen, right? And I know I don't mean to talk. I'm just rushing it along a little bit.
Yes.
Because, like I said, I do got to go. Caitlin, listen. I've been an activist for years. I've run the Outlook for a long, long time. People will say, why does this happen? Why does this happen? I never ask why. I have dissected this country, every aspect of pop culture, how we behave, how we got to this point. I've offered answers. I've said why I think we are at this point. I've said what needs to be done. But a lot of people, as much support as I get, a lot of people, what I say disturbs them because it's forcing us to look in the mirror. People don't like when I say 2.5 Men is a disgusting show because people love that show. And it
is disgusting.
But the thing is, Caitlin, it's like, as small of a piece of the puzzle as that may sound, what does it say about America when
it's huge.
Millions of people embrace a show that is about treating girls like complete meat, like meat, like a sex doll, and then that's the dehumanizing of an entire agenda. So
absolutely, I live that.
Why would it surprise us that? Caitlin, you know where I stand. I even think your audience at this point probably has maybe checked out my website. I mean, I've been on your show quite a few times this last couple months. Go to my website. Go check out what I do. It's all there. I've broken down every little minute detail of society. I think I've given solutions, but all you're going to hear about is make guns illegal, make guns not illegal, have gun rights, don't have. To me, it's not make them legal, make them illegal. I don't really care. That's not the problem.
It isn't.
The problem is, look at this. This guy went. It's like it's a daily occurrence. I feel like going, hey, Mom, look. They're saying this guy shot his mother. Hey, Mom, tell my mother. Hey, Ma, you mouth off to me. This is what's going to happen to you.
That's amazing.
Why don't I should just say that to my mother? Why not? Seems like everyone else is.
Yeah.
It's Christmas. It's right before Christmas. They're shooting these little kids. There you go. That's Michelle Obama said she was embarrassed, and she took a lot of flack for that, for saying she was, never proud of being an American until her husband. I am embarrassed with this country. I don't care who hears me say it or who's offended that I said it. I am. Right now, I'm pretty embarrassed. I think we all should be.
I think we should be ashamed on some level. I agree with you entirely. And, because you are there and because you have been an activist as long as you are, and we have actually been pushing you a little bit here. So I'm hoping that you do have some additional people contacting you. But there really isn't any excuse anymore. My gosh, this stuff is at the hardcore events. If it's with the punk rock scene, I'm not belittling that hard rock scene, but I'm just saying, if those people are sometimes considered outcasts and lesser value, and if they can figure that out and get it together and do something, what the heck is wrong with,
Caitlin, I'll tell you what, I have many, these are tiny states out here. I have many, many friends in Connecticut. They're all talking about it. They're already, I've spoken all over Connecticut. I'm sure I've been right in that area many times. I've
Sure.
got friends that live near there. Everyone's horrified. And, Caitlin, I'll say this because I do got to go in a minute.
Yeah, I know you do.
I'll close by saying this, right? There's so much debate and politicizing of religion and this and that. And that's fine. I don't care whether people are religious or not. They believe in God. They don't. What God they believe in. What. My issue is this, Caitlin. Whether you do or do not believe in God, there is no concept anymore of karma, of universal law, of consequences, of there being more to life than what we see in front of us. There's just no concept of it. I mean, I truly believe that. 50 years ago, there was something in people's brains that told them not to do something like that is now missing.
It's a survival instinct. I agree with you entirely.
So, in Caitlin, I'll even say, Caitlin, I want to say this. I know it's a horrible thing to bring, and we talked about this, the Jeffrey Dahmer thing, right?
Exactly.
Something he said, and again, I know I'm talking something sensitive, and you guys are in Milwaukee, but he I watched interviews with him, and there was something in him. If you watch interviews with that guy, and I encourage people to go check this out, right? Throughout the time when he did all his horrible deeds in your city, he often mentions in his interviews there was something telling him this was wrong, but he suppressed it.
Yes.
Okay? And what's happening is people are suppressing this and then saying that they're sick. Well, I'm sick, I'm psycho. I don't believe that. I believe these people have always been around, but there was some type of thing that even the sickest of people, it was somehow wired into them, like maybe I shouldn't do this. You know what I mean? And that is just lacking. It's not there anymore. Even like serial killers and crazy people had that in them, and they admit they had it, but they let their sexual urges or whatever horrible thing take over. Now I don't even think they have that. Now it's like anything goes, and Caitlin, I'm giving weird examples now, and I'm all over them.
No,
now.
actually, I think you're right, Dan.
But I think it's time to start giving weird answers and thinking outside the box, because nothing else is working. Maybe it's time for someone like me. Maybe people should start listening to what I'm saying, because I'm not confused by this. I'm not at a loss for words. I'm pretty confident I know why this is like this, and I've given my opinion over and over again about it.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time and saying it again. I have to agree with you, Dan. I don't think that your examples were far off at all.
Right.
The problem is, though, that the first examples that you gave of people like Dahmer and the prior serial killers, I actually think they were somewhat sane people. I don't think the people that are doing the mass shootings now are anything of the same ilk at all. I think they're much more commercialized, and I agree. I think they're being much more steered by the culture.
Which I would say, even more proves my point.
Absolutely, it proves your point, because these guys aren't even like the traditional, and I call them true criminals or true villains. These are people who are just, I'd almost say lazy, and I'm sure that's going to make people mad, but I think it's downright laziness.
Well, I think it is that simple, Caitlin. I think it's that simple. It's selfishness. It's I'm angry right now, so this is what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
I really believe that.
And one of the things that, I thought I would like to maybe hear back from you at some point in the future is what I see an incident like this causing more than anything else is the anger that it will bring, which will create an excuse for a lot of people to have a lot of outrageous behavior. And I don't think it's going to inhibit the people. Like, for instance, if someone's going to beat their kid today, this is going to fuel their anger. It's not going to make them think life is precious. And I don't think people understand the collateral damage these public stunts actually do to everyday people. So I'm on board with you 100% there. And it's good to be able to talk to you, Dan, because it's always good to have more than one person saying these things. And I think it makes it more credible and more believable if these types of opinions, similar views are coming from people from different walks of life.
Well, Caitlin, here's the deal. I do got to go now.
Yes, you do. Where are you going tonight?
I'm speaking in Kingston, Massachusetts.
Oh,
it's
good.
right next to Plymouth. They have a lot of all-ages shows. The kids asked me last night if I'd come, so I'm going to head over there. I'm sure this will be on the agenda tonight.
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to hear it, too. And I'll tell you this, Caitlin, I would, if you wanna, once you guys after the holidays back up and running on your normal schedule, if you want to have me on as a guest, like we did the first time when we all met, and have me on for a while and talk about this. I mean, I've got so much to say about it.
Okay.
I would gladly come back on as a guest again. I'm sorry to cut it short.
Oh, no, this is fine, Dan. And actually, I have quite a list of interviews lined up, taking
good
us
stuff.
all the way into January. But I'm hoping maybe to see you in person and get a chance to share some of these views in person.
Yeah,
exactly.
Maybe down in that Louisiana show.
In Baton Rouge, that would be wonderful if I could make that happen.
Well, Caitlin, as usual, I'll talk to you off the air. I'll give you a call this week.
Absolutely.
And, thanks for having me on.
Give us your .org again, please.
It's theoutloukspeaks.org, www.theoutlookspeaks.org. The Outlook Program to Stop Abuse is my organization. Look at the website, contact me, and if you want to know more about what I think of all this, go on my website, because I already said it yesterday.
Yes.
So go check it out if you want.
You've been saying a lot.
No need to update anything. It's been up there for a while.
Excellent. Well, and I'm going to be following up our conversation with an interview with Kelly and Ross from Springfield, Illinois.
Awesome.
No More Victims too.
Good friends of mine.
Excellent. So good. So we're going to be listening to them. Dan, have a good night. Tell your co-pilot there I said hi.
I'll tell Rick. Yep, I'll tell him you said hi, and we'll all be in touch with you soon. And
sounds
Caitlin,
good.
Again, I'm sorry about it. I will get.
Don't worry.
You sent me those interviews. I'll get that in the mail this week, and I'll give you a call. We'll check in.
No worry. Yeah, just check in, Dan. It's so wonderful to hear from you. Thank you for coming on and helping push my audience a little bit for me
problem.
and Michael. Thanks.
Okay. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye-bye now.
Okay, bye.
And that was Dan Lawsey from The Outlook Speaks. Let's see if you can hear me a little bit better. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with this microphone, so as the interview is going to be playing, I'm going to go ahead and make some changes and try to make things better. And Dan is going on to talk in Kingston, Massachusetts this evening, so that'd be great. So I'm going to now introduce you to another group, another couple activists that I met at the Hardcore for Hunger activity. This was Hardcore for Hunger 5. This is a concert where you pay a ticket price and you can see up to 10 bands. And if you bring food, because this is a food drive, you get a reduced admission price and you feed people in your local community, which is also a nice thing to be knowing that your contributions are helping at home. I hear a lot of people griping about, why should I send money overseas? Well, they're not sending it around home either. So here's a guy, Zach Z. The New Society of Anarchists has been running this program for 5 years. Dan Lawsey has been a guest the last couple of years, and he brought along with him Kelly and Ross from No More Victims 2. That is the number 2, as I've been instructed so many times not to make that mistake. They are based in Springfield, Illinois currently, and they've toured with Dan on previous occasions. Matter of fact, I believe Kelly even talks in the interview about the fact that she and her husband Ross and her cousin Sean, or AKA Logic as we like to call him, were touring with Dan for about a year's time, and they have actually some of their experiences posted with video clips on their website, which is No More Victims 2, the number 2.com. So if you'll just bear with me while I have to make the technical adjustments so you can hear what I can hear. There we go. All right, let's get this interview up and rolling with Kelly and Ross from No More Victims. And I want to preface this by saying we're going to have an opportunity to Logic has been very generous with his material. He's given us an opportunity to hear some of it in this interview. There will be 3 pieces by him, his spoken word. You could call these poems, and it is delivered in a narrative, a very compelling, very emotional narrative. And so I want to thank him. He was not available for the interview on the day that I came down. He had a little emergency going on in his own life. But I had a chance to speak to him before I left town. Give a shout out to Logic. Thank you so much, my dear, for contributing these things to our interview. I think it really helps the point go home to people, and I know that Kelly and Ross were very much missing you during that interview. So with no more delay, hopefully this will all work right, and here we go. The opinions expressed in the following interview are solely the responsibility of the host and her guests and are not the opinions or views of River West Radio. RiverWestRadio.com claims no endorsement, albeit encourages the following opinions.
I picture what you did to me existing in the basement of my mind. A hole in the wall of the deepest, darkest corner that was smashed through into a room with no windows that was hidden from the morning. It calls out coldly. Coldly, it calls out. It seizes my soul and it holds me, and yet somehow the air contains the hot, humid breath of shameful secrets whispered in alien tongues. Amidst the acrid air, the devil dances in the shadows, laughing at the weakness of my former self. In this room, the cold can go to your bones, but it's still warm as hell. On the floor lies a pissy, rotten, forgotten mattress that was barren save for the stains of years of pain and tears and shame. The walls wail with the sounds of the dark side of the moon. Each chord is like a sledgehammer to my eardrum. The beat reaches deep into the depths of my chest and it tears the air from my lungs. And all the picture frames contain fractured fragments of nostalgic nightmares. It's in this room right here where childhood monsters hide. There's bloodshot eyes that are filled with bloodlust, intent to slaughter innocence and show that love does die. But that's another lie, 'cause love survived. And so did I. I had to reach deep inside to find my forgiveness. That's when God's light would break through in glimpses and shine till it's as bright as the lightning that strikes in the distance. And soon this room was collapsing to fragments. My whole world opened up and I could move past what had happened. So now I came to help you, bring some hope for your system. Because I can take a stand and I won't be a victim. No more victims. A non-for-profit organization founded on the purpose that as people who share this planet together, we must look after each other, particularly those too scared or frail to stand up for themselves. Each year, more and more children are sexually abused or deprived of decent living conditions or health care. Each day a person suffers at the hands of someone they believe loves them, afraid to speak out against the violence. Each hour an elderly person is forced to live in horrible conditions, alone and forgotten, and left to the cruel hands of uncaring providers. Each minute, another person is thrown into the penal system without anything close to a fair trial, forced to live in a hell that most of us pray to never have to see. Each second of every single day, people are starved, beaten, abused, and mistreated worldwide. We must do anything we can to provide them with hope, to know that they're not alone. We do not want your money, nor do we want your time. All we ask is that you stand up for something, anything, so that we can see a world with no more victims.
Okay, today I am talking to Kelly and to Ross, the founders of a project called No More Victims 2. I first met them at O'Keefe's Port of Hamburg for the Hunger for Hardcore 5 show. And I thought their story was tremendously compelling. I wanted to introduce them to our listening audience so you too can have your lives changed by this very powerful message. So I want to introduce Kelly. Hello, Kelly.
Hi.
And I want to introduce Ross.
Hello.
And we are going to spend the next few minutes talking about what compelled you to start this organization. And we'll go into some of the details of, the day-to-day kind of details. You do have a website. You do go to shows. That's how I met Dan Lazzi. You're going to tell us how you met Dan Lazzi. And then you're also going to tell me about how you are expanding your mission and being invited into schools and other places to spread this to younger victims, to children who may be in abusive situations. But the main point here is no matter who you are, because Kelly, I know you were very specific about saying you'll help anyone.
Absolutely anybody.
And I know that we've been talking a lot and focusing a lot on children, but the bottom line is, and the thing that really got me is what you said, and that is you'll help someone whatever they need.
whatever time of night, whatever time of year, whatever they need, all they got to do is call. And they don't have to be there alone, and they don't have to do things by themselves. There'll be someone there who will help them find the path, who will walk the path with them, and will just give them support maybe that they've never had in their lives.
Exactly. I give out my personal cell phone number. It's on the website. It's on my business cards. I honestly, any time of night, I hardly sleep. So if you ring my phone at 3 a.m, just because you need somebody to talk to, you're going through a rough time, you need some advice, some direction, that's what I'm here for.
That's a pretty amazing offer.
Yeah.
We are here right now in Springfield, Illinois, and you have made no bones about the fact that anyone, anywhere can call you.
Anywhere. We have...
Who can reach you?
Right. We have Facebook fans all over the world.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I get letters from people, overseas, quite frequently, thanking us for what we do and for being an inspiration for them to get out of their own situations.
Now, have you toured overseas?
No, not yet. I'm afraid of planes, so I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Well, so tell me, how long have you been doing this?
Well, we started this about 1.5 years ago. When we met Dan. Dan has been my angel. He's been my inspiration. We met him. He invited us to come on tour with him, and we did, and our lives have been changed forever because of it.
And I think that, Ross, we're going to ask you in a little bit to tell us the story of how you guys met Dan. But before you got to the point at which Dan came into your lives, you had to reach a point in your own life where you decided you were going to launch this, to do this, to put this message out there. How did that come about? How did you get there?
Honestly, it started as a project in group therapy. I had just had to make a collage sort of thingy, and I went with this pain theme, and I brought out all the negativity from my past, and I put it down on a piece of paper in pictures and in words clipped from magazines. And when I was finished, I looked at it and I just started bawling, and I thought, I know there's more people out there who've had it so much worse than I have. How can I make this a positive thing, And I've always been the type of person, like they call me stray cat syndrome. I take in people from off the street all the time. So I've always been the helpful kind of, let me help you kind of person. And I know it, for me, honestly, really didn't completely become a vision until we met Dan.
Okay.
Seeing what Dan did, I knew that was what I needed to do. That was how I was going to get the message out there. That was how I was going to help people.
Okay, we're going to talk about how you guys put that message out, but I would also like Ross to comment on where did you come from? How did you get to this point where this is the right thing for you to be doing?
I had so many events in my life that led up to the exact same thing happening, or to this point, I should say. So many things that led up to this point that they all seem relevant to me in a way. I moved to Chicago 3 years after Kelly moved to Springfield. And she's from the south side of Chicago, and I'm from Springfield. We basically crossed paths.
That's amazing.
And I moved there, ended up moving back in 2004, and I went back to pro wrestling. And I was an active independent pro wrestler, and that's how I met Kelly. And immediately from the day at the table, and she knows what I mean there, the day that we met at the table in the gym, everything from that point of my life started to make sense in hindsight. No matter where I was the day before led me to it, and I could easily see that. And her stray cat syndrome, as she calls it, and as people call it, is one of my inspirations. She is my inspiration to keep doing everything. and that I changed my life. And I have I feel like I was almost overcoming pro wrestling too, because it was such a part of my life. And every time that I think, oh, this sounds cool, I want to start a band, or I want to do this, I always had these weird projects going on. And now that I started No More Victims with Kelly, all these years later that we've been together, we finally start this project. I think whenever I get a cockamamie scheme, no, I'm helping somebody with this, and I look to Kelly and she inspires me.
Wow, it's really tremendous. I think it's important for people to hear that it is not out of anybody's reach to make changes in their life, to be active in making changes in their environment, their community, their life. And you two have a very powerful message for young people, but all people, about the fact that any day, any minute you decide that you want to step forward in a positive light, in a different light, that it's possible to do that. And in your story,
Oh, most definitely.
18 months old, your story is just proof positive. And you were telling me prior to the interview how things just seem to be kind of falling into place. And that's the message to you, that this is the right thing to do. And I believe that's the message a lot of people receive when they feel that their life is coming together and things are going in the right direction. Ross, it sounds kind of like you felt that maybe a little differently than us girls do, but you've definitely reached the point where you understand what you need to focus on and what's going to get you there.
Every day I wake up and it's totally different than the day before. So, and recognizing different things is my way of coping with what I've been through. With what I've been through, part of it goes with having to keep my mind occupied so that it doesn't go into places. And when I meet people, when I help people, I don't always give out my phone number. Like Kelly. Kelly will give her phone number to anybody and counsel them. And what I've found myself in my niche, which I didn't plan on, but my niche seems to be, I'll bump into somebody on the street. It's almost like I slipped, fell, and helped someone, or I slipped, fell, and someone changed my life. Whether I help them or not, I always see them as changing my life and helping me, because I always feel help from when someone says, oh my God, that's so amazing. I'm like, no, I think it's all on this side over here. And in person is when I get into the groove with people and we understand.
I think one of the things that people who haven't been abused or haven't suffered from violence don't realize is that this is a pain that we all carry throughout our whole lives. You know, whether you were abused as a child, raped as a teenager, beat as a wife, it stays with you. And I know myself, I fell into some pretty dark habits to deal with the pain. And yeah, it was just like reaching that point where, you know what, enough's enough. The alcohol is not making it go away. The drugs is not stopping it. And people need to realize that, yeah, exactly like you said, the minute you make that decision for change,
It's there.
it's there. And that's something I'm counseling this one girl right now. She's all, and I can't really say counseling. I'm not licensed. I'm not educated. Nothing. I can't legally counsel people. So I give personal advice.
I think we're allowed to counsel each other.
I just don't want to get in trouble.
No, I understand. But I think counsel is one of the free words that's still out there. I
Yeah.
believe that we're allowed to seek each other's counsel and advice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this lady that I'm talking to right now, she's, you know, really wishy-washy. She's in an abusive relationship, one that started after her marriage broke up. Her husband took her son away from her, and he's threatened to take her further, or take the kid further away from her so that she won't see him anymore. The guy that she's with now, you know, she's telling me all the time what he does to her and how he treats her, but she hadn't yet made that decision to leave him. So I quit talking to her. I'm not gonna force my help upon you. You have to make the decision to change.
It's kind of like a tough love thing. I've heard that you go to a point, and then when that person isn't taking themselves any farther, the healthiest thing to do is to take a step back and let that person get to where they need to get in the time it takes for them to get there. Like to take that next step, get to that next
Exactly.
plateau. I understand. Now, I had the opportunity to see footage of one of the, we don't call it performance. What do we call this? It's not really a show.
No, what we say that we do is we raise awareness through spoken word.
Okay. Zach had said that too. This is spoken word. I like that because you're not really promoting anything. Now, you both, Ross and Kelly, you both talked a little bit about your own past, to how you got here. And I think that's part of how you reach out to other people, is to let them know, look, this is what I came from. This is just a glimpse into what my life was. And this is where I am now. And I think that you're offering people a chance to see that there is reality in recovery.
Oh, definitely.
There is reality in changing your life, and you can move forward. So with that in mind, I know that a lot of people are very discouraged because they don't really feel that activism is very helpful. They don't feel that there's anybody out there really helping them.
Yeah, we get a lot of that garbage. Oh, you're just hippies. Look at your tattoos. You're useless. You know, you're not doing any good. But you know what? We're not there to help the masses. We're to help that one person who needs help, you know, at every place that we go to.
Okay. Let's talk about how you get to those places. Got Ross here, who is going to has promised to tell me the story about how you guys met Dan. Ross, would you please tell us all how you met Dan?
Well, Dan was the person that got us involved in creating the actual No More Victims project.
Okay, we should also probably take a moment to let people know that this is Dan Lazzi.
From the outlookspeaks.org.
Right. And you should also probably give us your website.
Our website is nomorevictims2.com.
Okay. So you met Dan Lazzi, who is also a spoken word person.
Yeah, I was going to an all ages show at Black Sheep Cafe. I was told there was a guy who does spoken word. A friend of mine told me, he goes, go check him out. I want to know what he's like. I've heard good things about him. My buddy had to work, so I go out there. I meet him. I find out a little about him, and I immediately I said to him, hold off on your show as long as you can. I got to go grab my wife. I came home. I said, sweetie, I said, get dressed. You're going to the Black Sheep. She says, no. She says, I'm not going. I'm comfy. I'm in bed. I'm watching whatever you were watching. It was some show you were really into.
Probably Dexter.
Yeah. and I said, no, you're coming to see this guy. And so she reluctantly comes and to the show, meets him, and our lives we said, we got to do something like this. He was our inspiration for the way we founded it. And we've each tried to do things to make a difference individually in the past, and now it's all falling into place. And that one key night, and it was in April of 2011, where we said, we're going to do something like this too. And we came up with the name No More Victims due to the basic...
2010.
2010? No, it was 2011. Yep, this is where you can tell we're husband and wife. It was 11
months.
Yeah, 18 months, yeah.
Okay.
We came upon the basic mission statement of wanting to turn victims into survivors. Now, stopping abuse is a lot of people's goal. However, helping those recover from abuse and helping them move forward with their life is
and raising awareness,
of course,
to help stop it, to try.
Yes.
Well, when you say raising awareness, do you honestly think that there are people out there who do not know that there are children being abused, that there are boys being bullied by gangs or being pressured into joining gangs, or girls who are being assaulted, date rape situations? Do you really think there's anybody in this day and age who doesn't know that?
I do.
I do too, because at that age I didn't know the extent of it, and that was even in my own self. I didn't realize until I'm still realizing different things that have happened to me and saying, you know what, that was wrong, that shouldn't have happened.
So you're realizing there's an entire community out there of people pretty much across the board who really don't recognize that what happened to them is wrong, and that there are other people who are saying this happened to me and this is wrong, and you're going one step further and saying, I'm here for you to come and talk to me about this. So this is the way raising awareness.
Definitely.
Okay.
And when I was in school, you didn't talk about things like that. You didn't talk about stuff that had happened to you. And maybe at least it was the schools I went to. You didn't share those things with other people. You know, there wasn't rumors going around about this person and such happened to them. It was just not mentioned, so you'd think it didn't happen. And then if it happens to you, you're too ashamed to admit to it.
I'm sorry, if I may, I would just like to add 2 points. One, to finish the story on how we met Dan.
Oh, sure.
So Ross gets me to the venue. I sit and listen to Dan talk. And the show that night was actually pretty interactive with the audience. And I found myself crying through most of it, that, you know, just knowing that, oh my God, there's somebody there that really understands. And I got the chance to talk to him after the show, and I invited him over to the house. I had to know more about him. And this man that I had never met before, with his big, kind, open heart, came to my house and he sat and listened to my story. And I showed him the collage that I had made, and I told him I wanted him to have it, because I can't explain why I wanted him to have it. I just knew that he needed to have it. And so he put that on his table for a long time. It was just amazing to me that somebody like him, I shouldn't say somebody like him, but just somebody in general that I'd never met before would show me that much attention and actually believe me. Now, like, getting towards what he was just talking about, as far as are there people out there that think this isn't really happening? When I was a kid, I wasn't believed. In fact, it wasn't until August of last year that my family finally learned the truth and accepted it. They had been hearing about it since it happened.
But they actually accepted it as validated it as being the truth.
Right. I was my entire life accused of being a liar, and ridiculed and scolded for making up stories.
And this was by your family and extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins.
Correct.
Okay. So you obviously had been pretty vocal, or tried to be pretty vocal, about what was going on in your own life and your own circumstance, and were met with a lot of denial, which I think many of us come to at different points in our life. But for some, it starts very early.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it started very early for you.
I was 4 years old.
Oh, that's pretty early. So here, Ross, you come. You grab Kelly, you don't take no for an answer. Mm-hmm. You go, you see Dan. Dan comes back with you. You guys talk. You share some pretty amazing, intimate details of what you've been through in your life. And instead of falling apart and collapsing, you find strength and you find hope. And suddenly there's a light.
I had an answer. I knew at that moment what God intended for me to do with my life, and how I was not only going to further my recovery, but help other people recover as well.
I don't assume, Ross, that you had the same light switch go on. I would assume that your experience was different.
Not much, actually.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's where me, Kelly, and Sean, aka Logic, we all kind of got to an understanding at the same time without even asking about it. We all just kind of said, yeah, this is something we need to do. And we all kind of looked at each other and said, we all kind of knew it. And the most asking we do is acknowledging that, yeah, we're going to do this now.
Wow.
Seeing at the time, Sean lived in Champaign. He's my cousin. He's told his personal story.
Okay.
You know, we were both abused by the same person in our family.
Okay. Now, let's just back up a little bit. how did AK Logic, how did he come into this then? You guys were transformed, and you brought him in then and said, come witness this.
Well,
And be a
it
part of
was, because I knew he had the confidence to get on stage where I didn't.
Oh, okay.
And he is an entertainer, and he has this incredible gift with spoken word, with writing, rhyming.
He's very charismatic.
Very, very. And I knew that he had to be a part of this, because it wasn't until a couple years ago that Sean and I got together and discussed our experiences as children, and realized that we had both been abused by the same person.
That must have been a very, very powerful moment for both of you.
It was, to say the least.
Yeah, because one of the things that I'm kind of taking away from meeting both of you and having heard Sean, but not actually having had a chance to talk to him yet, is that I think one of the most powerful things that you do is you are witnesses. Now, that may not seem like very much, but if you've gone through your entire life and never had anybody validated that your sense of what happened to you is wrong and that it shouldn't have happened, to have someone witness that for you has got to be just like a life preserver.
It really was. The feeling of relief.
That you're not crazy?
Yeah, I'm really not. Like I said, watching what Dan did, and watching him on stage, and the way that he can communicate with an audience his thoughts, and that man's head moves at 1,000 miles an hour. But it was amazing to realize I could do the exact same thing, but deliver a different message, and help other people.
You really are attracting, well, you're kind of looking for different people. I know that Dan goes and speaks at all ages shows, and I know that he also speaks at 21 and over, and I understand that he kind of tailors his conversation to the moment, to the time, the place, and the audience.
Yes.
But you now, in the very brief, and it really is, brief 18 months that you've been doing this from start to where we are now, are actually going to be expanding, and you're
Well, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but apparently the equipment just crashed. So, if you'll bear with me for a moment, I'm going to see if I can get the equipment up and running. Don't know what happened here, folks. Interesting. Well, while I'm waiting for a little technical support, I guess what I'm going to do is go over some things that are coming up. And give me just a moment here. Okay, still working on trying to get that technical problem solved here. We'll get back to that interview as soon as we can. And hold on just for a second, folks. I don't really want to go over too much of what's going on. I would like to go over the details of what was released and to the public, what was released to the public from the authorities in Connecticut. I don't really want to give this a lot of time. I don't want to sensationalize it or glamorize it or anything else like that, but I think it's something that as a parent I certainly want to at least address a little bit. I know it's a little rough for some people to understand, but I have to say I do agree a lot with what Dan Lazzi was saying. We are teaching ourselves, we are teaching our own people as a culture that violence is acceptable. And we have desensitized it to such a point, I don't really even hear anywhere near the outcry that used to be prevalent, or at least used to be available, about the violence of video games and things of that sort, things that we use to entertain ourselves with. Now, I know that the only time we usually hear about the Watchdog Group, another mothers type organization like Mothers Against Drivers, that's about the only time when they are getting fought by some large company that doesn't want the mature rating in order to make it possible for children to buy their products. You otherwise really have become probably as a culture desensitized to what's going on. So when Dan Lazzi talks about this being an embarrassment and makes comments about a statement that Michelle Obama made, I have to say I can understand. She's trying to be accountable. She's trying to take responsibility and not run from what is an unfortunate outcome in this society's choices. So I think we've got power back. Let me see if I can get the audio back on our interview and we'll finish that up.
You're now being called upon to bring this message to kids in school.
We are. We've been in contact with a woman that runs Camp Care-a-Lot in Champaign and Decatur. It's a camp for underprivileged children. It's a possibility for us to go out there and speak with those children about bullying. You know, we're still trying to work out the details of exactly how to cater to a child audience, to a young audience like that. You know, try to
How young?
teach.
do you think-
I'm thinking
How young do you think
probably
you go?
grade school to middle school.
10 or 12, are you thinking?
Yeah.
Someone they're old enough to maybe recognize a sense of justice.
Right.
Okay.
You know, teach bad touch, good touch, and, you know, be available in case some, you know, one of the children need help, but don't know who to turn to, don't realize that what was happening to them was wrong. You know, that's one of the things that I tell people who come to me for help and advice. You know, first of all, it's not your fault. You know, you didn't ask for this. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. It's okay, and you're not alone. And together we will move forward.
And I want to emphasize that one of the things that I think that you do that's very, very powerful is give a person a sense of the fact that there's not anything wrong with them.
No.
I think a lot of victims develop the idea, and it probably goes along with the whole victimization cycle, that somehow they're responsible. Maybe to go as obvious as I brought this on myself, or maybe as subtle as I must be wrong inherently in order for someone to feel they need to do this to me.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like a lot of the rape victims. Oh, maybe I was too drunk. Maybe I didn't say no soon enough. Children, it's just a part of life.
Now, Ross, your experience has been a little different than what Kelly's has been, but yet I listened to your spoken word at that same video segment, and you talk about not being recognized as being a potential victim. If it was for some reason that it would be an oversight that the things that you were experiencing, although equally as wrong, just would not necessarily get anybody's attention or get any notice.
Part of what I've been through, and I'm still working with it, and that's a never-ending process, is working with what you've been through. My key on that night was, your worst is your worst. No matter what your worst is, or this other person's worst is, you still deserve help from, you know, no matter what. You still deserve help. It's your worst. With what I've been through is different than what other people have been through, but it is at the same level, because it's to your own personal self. And
Yeah, it's like comparing a paper cut to a broken leg. If a paper cut is the only thing you've ever suffered in your life, it's very traumatic.
It's still a paper. It's still a cut. Yeah.
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
If you have a broken bone, though it may be more serious, it's traumatic. And trauma is trauma. And that's where we come up with the phrase, everybody's worst is their worst. And your worst, no matter who you are, feels the same as it does somebody who may not have had it so bad. They still feel as horrible as, it's all the same.
Right, so that's the equality in this, is just that whatever the event was, it was your experience, your trauma, and it is equal to anybody else's trauma.
Exactly.
So you don't have to get to Kelly and Ross and Sean by winning the award for the most traumatic life. We're not holding the Academy Awards for that.
Yeah.
But what we are saying is your worst is your worst, and it doesn't matter what it is. It
A
is
victim
for you.
is a victim. Everybody deserves, like he said, to be helped and to be treated with respect and dignity.
To be witnessed, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to put a word to it. I am very new to this. My first introduction to the spoken word was actually through Zach Z from New Society of Anarchists, talking to me about how he is intrigued with the spoken word. And you now have identified what you do also as spoken word. To me, this strikes me as being a very underground thing in that it's not well known, although it's spreading like wildfire amongst those who do know and are passing it on. I talked at length with Richard Brophy and Zach C. about how they're actually developing a type of activism in the hardcore scene, which historically has always been there, but many people are not aware of that political outward attitude of that type of scene. And I'm almost wondering, I think, isn't there some of that kind of associated with the wrestling scene as well? Aren't some of these fellows pretty outspoken about causes and things?
It's individually as opposed to what they personally believe in. A wrestler, Mick Foley, recently was doing something with an anti-child abuse group, and he would do certain things like he'd ask for, here's where you can donate whatever money you want. If you donate this amount of money, I'll send you an autographed picture. If you donate this amount of money, I'll give you a phone call and thank you. And it was like, I think a $10,000 donation.
I thought it was only 500.
No, it was 10,000 because I was trying to come up with 500. No matter where you were in the United States, he would come and mow your lawn for you and thank you personally for donating that much of money. And I'm not 100% on the exact price.
You gotta be kidding me. He would come and mow your lawn in thanks for making a tax-deductible charitable contribution to this particular organization. That is just wild.
Yeah.
What a great idea.
Worldwide famous wrestler would come to your house and mow your lawn for you.
That is amazing. I mean, that is just wonderful.
I got inspiration from doing that, and we did the walk a mile in her shoes. When we did that, if we raised a certain amount of money, we all volunteered. We would carry a woman, and we carried a woman on a platform wearing high heels for a mile in downtown Springfield.
Oh my gosh.
We did the polar plunge for Special Olympics. I've raised money for the Stephanie Spielman Foundation for women with cancer in Ohio. I raised around $300, I believe, and I did that by stapling the money to myself with a staple gun.
To your clothing on your person, or to your...
I took off my shirt and would staple it all over my body. And everyone's like, oh, that is so sick. Why would you do that? I'm like, well, ask the guy who wouldn't open up his wallet to drop it in the bucket for cancer, but will do it to see me staple it to myself. What sick is.
Yeah.
All that I'm doing is getting a staple wound.
That says a lot more about the person asking to see that than the person actually doing it. I get that. I really get that.
And I have people donating money so that I wouldn't do it.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting tactic. Not only do you have your own message and your own organization to make available to people, but you're also networking with other organizations. The thing that I find so important to stress is how people who are discouraged, oh, there's nothing I can do, there's no place for me to go, to see people who are coming with messages of hope and almost deliverance. Maybe I go too far saying that, but you're also saying, look, go down to the corner, put 3 cans of food in the barrel that the kids from the high school have down there. Or you got some clothes from last year, drop them off at this box at the gas station on Main and 3rd.
Exactly.
So you're also helping people tie in, helping people network, giving places for people to put their good intentions.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Not only that, but I sort of use that as my way of networking for resources for people who call me for help. Where can I go to get this? Oh, well, I met this person at this function. They can help you. Let me get you their number.
Exactly.
So
That's brilliant.
It works out for everybody. Here in Springfield, we've really taken off like wildfire here. It's just been incredible. But we, like he said, we started working with the other foundations in town, and we all help each other, and we send people to each other, and it's all in the name of helping other people.
Let's talk a little bit how you actually get to a place where people can come and meet you and hear you and be empowered. So how does that work? How do you end up at a show?
Okay, well, like I said, it all started out with Dan.
Okay.
After we decided to start No More Victims, I had stayed in contact with Dan after we met.
Okay.
And No More Victims, we decided this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to follow Dan. And so he's like, all right, I'll give you a crash course. I want you guys to come on tour with me next year. So we did. Had no idea what we were in for. We were in the car for 3 weeks, sleeping in the car, the 3 of us, traveling from venue to venue, watching Dan. And Sean would, Logic would get up, and he has such a powerful message that he delivers to people, and we were allowed to do that occasionally on the tour, and it kind of gave us a taste of what we were in for, and planted a desire for what we wanted to be in the future. It was amazing. And since the tour has ended, we have local venues and local bands that are huge supporters of ours, like Ghost Hollow Road. They are our biggest supporters by far as musical or bands go. They invite us to come and speak at their shows all the time. So that's just kind of how it happens right now. But to get in touch with me,
Yes.
just call me.
Just call you.
217-720-2821.
And I will not have to edit that out.
Nope.
Because you really do want people to call you.
I do.
You do. Now, you have the website, and you can repeat the address if you would.
www.nomorevictims2.com.
Now, is there a story behind why it's number 2?
Well, when we were trying to come up, it originally was No More Victims Now, and I was like, no, that's too much, and I wanted to be just No More Victims. So I researched online, and the group right now that has No More Victims as their name, they are a group that reunites children who have been torn from their families during war with people who will care for them.
Wow, I didn't know about this organization.
I didn't either until we came up with the name No More Victims. So I thought that was such a beautiful, beautiful thing that we just had to become number 2.
Now, do they know of your existence?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know if I just know that I saw their name, and I saw, if you look them up on YouTube, you'll see what they do and what they're about. But I was so touched by what they did there, I wasn't even going to ask for the name. I just went with 2.
Do you have a schedule? Do you post your appearances on the website so people, if they want to come see you, they can come see you?
Yes. Like I said, right now, everything we're doing is pretty local. Everything we do, we are completely 100% self-funded. We ask for donations to help us get from venue to venue. We live on fixed income, so our resources are very limited. We pay for t-shirts. We have t-shirts printed, which we sell at every show that we go to.
Okay.
And we bring CDs, like Logic, his music that he's performed.
Okay.
Some of his wrestling videos.
Okay.
And then I have CDs of just my favorite kind of music that's just a mishmash of my personality that we put on the table with a donation bucket, and people can just take what they want, and that's how we get from place to place.
What a story. What an absolute story. So you go to the shows, and Dan goes to where these hardcore events are going on, which makes sense because Richard Brophy is a promoter. Zach Z also organizes these kinds of things in Milwaukee, and I believe he goes to other places that are doing this, other state. Then you guys are, from what I understand, sometimes are as big an attraction as the bands people are coming to see, which I think is amazing. So you said to me earlier you go between the band sets, but with the popularity of people wanting to hear this spoken word, and this is just an amazing thing that you actually, and Dan at sometimes, are just bringing in even more of the audience than the music is. And that's astounding. That is just
I hope we're doing that.
Well, that's what I hear from Richard and Zach.
At the Hardcore for Hunger show, like you saw in the video, Ross, somebody just came up and hugged him in the middle of our little set. And at every show that we go to, at least one person comes up to each one of us at a time, at different times, and thanks us and tells us how much what we said and how much what we're doing means to them. I went to a local bar one day, and this girl, I walked in, I was wearing one of my No More Victims t-shirts, which is pretty much my whole wardrobe now. And
Understandable.
she looked at me and she said, "Is that you? Is that you? Is that really you?" And I looked at her kind of strange. I was like, "Yeah, why?" And she grabbed my hand and she yanked me outside of the bar and threw her arms around my shoulders and thanked me for giving her the strength to leave her abusive boyfriend. She was there at the Black Sheep the night that we kicked off our tour with Dan.
Oh my gosh.
She heard my story and she left her boyfriend. And that is what makes it worthwhile for us.
So that was your one person, at least once.
Yes.
That is just tremendous.
And it happens
tremendous.
almost at every show. I mean, it's gotten to the point almost where I can't leave the house, grocery store, whatever. We run into people, "Thank you so much, thank you so much." They're recognizing the t-shirts. Unfortunately, they're starting to recognize my bass. But
Yeah, no more anonymity. This
You're
is on the
right,
radio,
yeah.
but not the video clips. And the video clips are on your website. I don't
Yes.
mean to interrupt you, but I did want to just say your mission statement of Logic, aka
Yes.
Sean, delivers the mission statement on the website, which I think really puts complete perspective for anyone who's curious and, well, I don't want to call these people, I don't know them. Go to that website, listen to this mission statement, and recognize your place in this statement. You are included. You're welcome. You want them to contact you. You want them to become part of a community of survivors. I personally don't like to use the word victim too much because I understand that we can start out at victims, but I also recognize that if we take on the labels, sometimes we get trapped, we get lost in that vision of ourselves that somebody else is superimposing. And what I think is so wonderful about what you guys do is you're saying, I don't care who you are, I don't care what you've been through, come on over, talk
Yeah.
to me, make a connection here.
we're not going to judge you.
Exactly. It's the no judging. So Logic does that, and there are other poems that Logic performs that people can listen to. And I listened to a few of them with you. And I've got to say, he really manages to encompass as many examples of people who could need help that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah,
And that's pretty incredible.
he's very talented with his words, with his deliverance. He's very firm in his mission. And I know he's not here right now, but
Next time.
yeah, he's very adamant on, even if you're not a victim, you know someone who is, and what you need to do is take a stand for something. Anything. You know, like Dan says, to use the microphone as a weapon. Sean's the same way. Do something. Stand up for somebody. Don't watch it happen.
The worst thing you can do is nothing. It's the absolute worst.
Sean is very, very, very passionate about this project.
So it's the three of you, and you also have people that do contribute as well. A little bit.
A little bit here and there. We have people starting to pop up and come out and say, I want to help.
Actually, that is true. We have a man, a dear friend of ours in Austin, Texas, who wants to start a chapter of No More Victims for us down there because of how much we've touched his life.
That's amazing. You could have literally chapters if people would step forward and volunteer to be a part of this in their own community.
Wouldn't it be wonderful
it
if we
would.
could just, you know, in every major city across the country, no more victims?
Miss Carol, 70 years old, deaf as can be with a hearing aid in both heroes, alone in a home, her friends dead and gone, her family forgot her, of course. She sits alone by a window, feeling ignored, almost a corpse. The halls that she roam up stink of ammonia. She's abused by the staff and ignored by the owners. She begs for help, sheds tears to her kids, who just look at her foolish like she don't know who she is. This is no way to live. Damn sure ain't no way to die. She clutches on a Bible. She knows Jesus knows why. And by the time the day come, Miss Carol won't wake up. She'll be home with a savior who would never forsake her. And on Carol's table was a note to her children. It was 4 simple words. Please, no more victims.
We've come to the end of our interview. It really has been a fascinating story. I'm always very encouraged when I can say, hey, there are people out there who were frustrated but have now figured out a way to do something about it. And if you don't personally have time to organize and do something about it, you can contribute, you can participate, and that will be you doing something about it. We've covered a lot of stuff. I mean, 18 months may not seem like a long time, but in that 18 months you guys have made this decision and stepped forward. A lot has happened. I think we've covered quite a bit of it.
Yes.
But I want to give you the opportunity now to just say whatever we may not have had a chance to say yet, or that we'd like to say again. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ross, and then you, Kelly. Have at it.
Well, I'm actually going to pass it on to Kelly. I find myself almost rewording her sometimes because our statements are so similar. I'll just let her give the mission statement from the group. I'll step out. I'll bow out. You need to get a hold of me. It's kind of like the A-Team. If you can find us, maybe you can get help from the No More Victims.
I promise you will find us.
Yeah, you will.
Wow. First of all, what a wonderful, interesting evening. I thank you for your kindness in driving all the way down here to be with us and giving this opportunity to further spread our word of hope. Again, I want to remind people, I too was there. There's not much I haven't been through. Almost everybody knows somebody who's been through something and needs help, whether it's you or them. My phone number is 217-720-2821. Our website is nomorevictims2, like the number 2.com. You can call me day or night. I don't sleep much, so, you know, sometimes I sleep days, sometimes I sleep nights. If you miss me and catch my voicemail, I promise you I will call you back. No one is ever alone as long as we are here.
And I want to double that sentiment. I believe that you are here for people, and I believe that your message strongly is that you are not alone. You mentioned that you want people to understand there's nothing wrong with them.
Nothing at all.
and that you are there, you guys, you and Ross and Sean and the other people that are going to be stepping forward and coming to the group. And who knows, maybe in the future, the satellite groups in other states and other cities. So, you know,
That would be wonderful.
that you're here, you want to help a person, you want to help that person emerge as their own self, as a person who's validated, whose story is witnessed. If you've always been alone, you do not have to be by yourself, and you don't have to do this alone. You guys are here, and I think I also want to really thank that Zach Z from New Society of Anarchists, because with his persevering in a very cold climate and continuing to push forward and having the shows and having you guys come and really forwarding the agenda of the spoken word, all of us have had a chance to meet each other.
Amen.
The networking continues. I hope people really go away with a good feeling, if nothing else, and maybe even a sense of hope. And now they got a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
Now they got people to call.
Day and night.
Thanks very much. This has been an interview with Kelly and Ross from No More Victims 2. We want to give a special shout out to Sean.
There's a nightmare brewing. A tumultuous thunderstorm that was hidden beneath hooded eyelids. Desensitized to digital violence, an obsession with dying and a primal urge to try it. The razor glares glowingly, begging to connect with fresh flesh. See, to an old man, 16 years is but a whisper in history. But to a young woman who's seen things that obscene, it can mirror infinity. So when the curtains are closed, they'll blame status updates and bitter tweets on Twitter. But this razor will know better, because it wasn't the people who hit her, and it wasn't the uncle that touched her. It was the fact that she felt alone, and nobody loved her. I see you in the crowd, search for silence when it's loud. Just too quiet and too proud to stand up and scream, pay attention to me, 'cause I am a human being. So the razor waits patiently, just patient to cut her. But you need to know, baby, that you ain't alone, because we're always here to love you.
Thank you for listening. And that was Kelly and Ross of No More Victims 2, number2.com. Well, we're going to move on. We've heard from at least 3 activists today, and 1 in absentia. And I would like to cover some of the other things that I promised that I would get to this week. I have to beg my pardon, please. I am recovering from the flu. This is my first day actually up and walking around on the planet again. And I'm not absolutely sure how long my voice is going to hold out. It's been doing amazingly well. Now, last week and the week before, I promised something about helping us understand what all this talk is about the fiscal cliff. I just pulled up an article from the Wall Street Journal, and there's a Q&A section that, as a matter of fact, they have an entirely new area, section devoted to fiscal cliff. So, yes, folks, the drama ensues. So I clicked on that just to see. There's a couple articles about disgruntled arguments between the president and Honeywell and some other people, and I can get back to that later. But down at the bottom, right above the counter, saying that we have in 17 days, so many hours, so many minutes and seconds before we hit the deadline of December 31st, and I don't know if that's at midnight a.m. or midnight p.m. or 11:59 p.m. New Year's, the preface of New Year's. Okay, this is dated November 29th, 2012 at, it looks like, 6:06 p.m., and that would be Eastern Standard Time. And this is titled Q&A, What is the Fiscal Cliff? So,
Hey, it's Gabe.
What is the fiscal cliff? The fiscal cliff is a phrase that's become associated with the combination of $500 billion in spending cuts and tax increases that are scheduled to automatically start at the beginning of 2013. And you'll have to bear with me, I do paraphrase just slightly. Why are we facing a cliff at all? Think of the past 2 years as a rolling series of arguments about taxes and spending, none of which have been brought to a satisfactory conclusion. One of the fiercest standoffs happened in the summer of 2011 over whether and how to raise the U.S. borrowing limit. Well, the patchwork solution for that raised the limit and prevented the U.S. from defaulting. Ooh, that's not a good thing. Was to entrust a congressional committee with the job of crafting a big budget deal. Failure would lead to these across-the-board spending cuts and the natural end of the Bush-era tax code. Well, heck, we want to see the end of the Bush-era tax code. That's how we got here. But the committee failed. Oh, here we go. So who do we blame for the fiscal cliff analog? Ben Bernanke, who coined it earlier this year, although linguists note that the idea goes back decades. Okay, let's start with the taxes. Lots of things expire this year. That's partly because the tax code has become one giant ball of contingencies reflecting on the nation's fundamental disagreement on how and who should be taxed. More in a fiscal cliff. Let's see what else they say. That seems to be, well, that's kind of, okay. The Bush-era income tax rates, which have been extended once already under President Barack Obama, and that was underlined and underscored, will expire at the end of the year for all taxpayers. Also ending is a payroll tax holiday, which means a tax increase for workers as much as 2 percentage points. In addition, some 26 million additional people face the alternative minimum tax, or AMT, the next filing season, which would raise their taxes liability sharply unless Congress acts. Other expirations include a variety of smaller tax cuts for both businesses and individuals, collectively known as tax extenders. They include a tax credit for research and development and a deduction for sales taxes in states that don't have an income tax. Well, for those of you retired folks who are planning to move someplace that didn't have things like property tax, well, I can't believe there's any place that doesn't have income tax anymore. Maybe Wyoming. I'll have to look into that. Anyway, these places will no longer be places of refuge for those of you who want to pay the most minimum tax you can possibly get away from. Okay, let's further this now. And how about spending? Across the board cuts in domestic and partially, and particularly, defense spending would be triggered, including a $55 billion or 9% cut into the defense budget next year. That comes out on top of sizable cuts already in the pipeline, and another $55 billion in cuts to domestic programs, including a 2% cut to Medicare providers. What's the economic impact of going over the cliff? Well, pretty grim. If there is no agreement reached to extend the tax cuts and block the spending curbs, they may remain in place for more than a few weeks. The nonpartisan congressional budget projected the economy would contract 1.3% in the first 6 months of 2013. I kind of wonder what's wrong with that. Let's see. With the economy stabilizing in the second half and eventually achieving an annual growth rate of a whopping 0.5%, which may sound horrible, but that's actually about what interest rates on savings accounts, standard passbook saving accounts, are 3% or 0.3 or less? That's actually not a bad thing. It would mean that we are holding our own. The agency didn't provide new projections of the unemployment rate if the tax increases and spending cuts went into effect. Earlier this year, CBO estimated joblessness would rise to 9.2% at the end of the year 2013 if Congress didn't act. Some financial analysts argue that the budget cutting that would automatically take place will eventually boost growth by putting the government on a firmer, more sustainable financial footing. Let's back up 30 seconds. Didn't I just kind of echo that? The counter-argument is that going over the cliff would cause A, investor panic, and B, consumer panic, and fundamentally derail what's already a weak economic recovery. Well, it's wonderful to forecast doom and gloom and project a sense of panic. But, let's go back with this again. Let's cover this why again. What is the fiscal cliff? The fiscal cliff is a phrase that's become associated with the combination of 500 billion in spending cuts and tax increases that are scheduled to automatically start at the start of 2013. Okay, so what we're talking about is a deadline running out at the end of the year. A congressional committee has not been able to come up with a solution to try to how to smooth things over and maybe combine things and blend them together so we can keep this running relatively painlessly. Well, you know what? It's not going to be painless. However, I'm not suggesting that it would be painful for the middle class, although I'm sure if they can find a way to make it so, they will. I think what we're looking at is the fact that since the middle class has the numbers to riot and overpower and overcome its own government if they would just get their act together, it leaves no alternative but to turn to the richer portion of society, the least taxed and the most unreasonably, non-representatively taxed portion, very small portion. They would look at income taxes, etc., taxes that they have been able to skate out from underneath for a long time. And I must say, you might not agree with me, but wouldn't it be nice if people across the board, even if they were giant economic leaders and big providers of business, when you're talking about CEOs who are earning $200,000 as commissions for different contracts that are signed over a course of maybe a quarter, a business quarter, do you not think these people might be able to spare $50,000 a year to maybe chip into the pool a little bit here and help the rest of us out? Or should we really be looking at carrying people with insane wealth? You can only spend so much in this lifetime and you can't take it with you. And if the person was actually helping all their relatives with all that money, well, I think we'd be seeing a lot more donations and other types of things. Let's push donations as tax write-offs instead of skating out of taxes at all. Okay, that's enough of my soapbox. Let's see if there's anything more interesting about this story. Okay. All right, let's go a little farther here. To continue this wonderful Q&A session provided to us by the Wall Street Journal, the next part reads, why are we arguing about this all over again? Because a gridlocked Washington couldn't solve the problem before the election. And mind you, a lot of these folks, but not all of them, will be affected by the increase in taxation on the richer few. These people are very rich. They couldn't solve the problem before the election. And because the election failed to provide much clarity by returning Mr. Obama to the White House and the GOP to the House majority, the fundamental divisions over how the country should tax and spend are real and heartfelt and won't be easily overcome. What are the biggest differences? Well, taxes specifically. The top two tax brackets. There we go, folks. Mr. Obama campaigned and won on a promise to keep most of the Bush rates the same for everyone except the highest income Americans. He argued they should pay their fair share. Where have we heard that before? Maybe about 200 years ago. To help restore the budget. Yeah. And you know what, folks? I bet you some of them wouldn't mind. Republicans have pledged to note Republicans have pledged to not let that happen, contending such a move would hurt small business owners who pay taxes through the individual tax system. Well, if they're not the top 2%. Also, the GOP for a generation has pushed for lower rates across the board as a matter of principle. Well, why do you need to push for lower rates for a group that already has probably lower rates than the vast majority of us? It doesn't take much common sense to kind of see what's in line here. Thus far, Republicans have offered about $800 billion in new tax revenue by limiting deductions taxpayers can take for things like mortgage interest payments. Oh yeah, let's just grind those people into the ground, people who want to buy a home or pay for their home and not get it foreclosed. Oh, and charitable donations. Well, I can see maybe setting a cap on that, which there already is a cap. What do you know? Mr. Obama wants that plus $1 trillion or so that would come from raising top rates on income and investment taxes. Again, you're taxing capital income. You're taxing people who are making obscene amounts of money. Why are we upset about this? It's not going to hurt Justin Bieber. He's from Canada. Between those two numbers is where the sides would likely have to meet to get the deal. Is it really all about taxes? Well, no. Revamping or not, as the case may be, America's social safety net is an equally big cleavage. Democrats want to cut by tinkering, such as trimming payments to medical service providers in the case of Medicare, although Mr. Obama has hinted he's willing to go further. Republicans want to raise a lot more money through lawmakers called structural or fundamental changes, such as increasing the retirement age or causing wealthier Americans to contribute more of the cost of their own health care. Okay, again, what's wrong with asking people who have large amounts of money to chip in a little bit more for the rest of us? I can't imagine, unless they're totally consumed by greed, that they couldn't see being patriotic and supporting the country that made them rich. Oh, but there's that G word. And as far as raising the retirement age, well, folks, I think people from the X generation, I don't think we're going to be retiring much before we're in our, I think 67 or 72 is probably what we're going to end up as. So guys in college and those in your 30s, prepare for that. I would expect not to be dependent on having your retirement available to you, at least until that point. So what you do is up to you. But I would suggest that maybe some smart decisions are in order so that you don't have to be part of this malarkey. So what is the deadline for all of this? Well, the deadline, as the journal's Damian Paletta has written, there is a rolling series of deadlines. Congress really wants this wrapped up by December 21st. Oh, well, that's the end of the world. The likely date, if plans to recess for Christmas. If that slips, we might be heading toward a smaller Band-Aid type fix. In other words, folks, they want to be able to leave on December 21st in order to be able to start their vacation, and that's what this is hinging on. I think a angry letter might be in order here. What are the chances we go over the cliff? Or actually an angry email to your representative. No one knows. Everyone says it's possible. Some think it's likely. It's hard to distinguish between posturing for a negotiating edge and what people really want. Now, here's an interesting point. How many times have we gone through this now? At least 3 times where supposedly the government was going to shut down at midnight and everything was just going to go to hell. Okay, folks, you've been through that scare on a national level 3 times now. We haven't ended. We haven't fallen apart. Things have continued business as usual for the most part for most of us the next day. I understand that a lot of this will affect us overall and in the long run, and it affects our quality of life. However, do not be misled. This is obviously not a concern for panic, and it is not a concern for the end of the world. So these are political issues, these are economic, financial, and they seem somewhat removed from the actual workaday lives of all of us. You know, we still have to make money. We're still buying gasoline. We're still buying food. We're still driving our cars on streets provided by the cities, et cetera, et cetera. You get the point. So, and if there's a deal, will we be done with this? I don't think so. Sorry, no. Next year, assuming this isn't all dealt with in some kind of omnibus solution, which of course we know isn't going to happen. We have a election year coming up next. We've got one coming in April, and I believe we've got one coming in the fall. The U.S. will run out of borrowing room and will have to raise the debt ceiling again. This is not a good idea. Another bout could emerge in late March when the government's funding runs out. See, here we go again. The government's going to start running at 11:59:59. Again, don't forget, even if there is a big deal that takes some of these questions off the table, the biggest and thorniest tasks, like how to redo the tax code, how to tackle Medicare, will be deferred until 2013 under this two-step plan currently under consideration. He concludes the article by saying, and I'm assuming it's a man, "This makes me feel tired. You might try to get used to it. We are all at the beginning of a demographic wave caused by the retirement of the baby boomers and the cost of supporting them, in particular their health, will eventually dwarf the current budget deficits until our expected spending comes into line without expected tax revenue. These kinds of dust-ups are going to be a permanent feature of the landscape." So what they're basically saying is because, and we've been told this for 20 years, that because the majority of the population is aging, there are less people putting money into the government to pay for the Medicare of many and the retirement, your Social Security and stuff. If there's less people putting in and more people taking out, then it would make sense. So at this time, this is when discrepancies fall into place, when things go wrong, because you cannot continue to favor a position where you're letting the most amount of money walk away and be forgiven any tax consequences or any responsibility for paying more. So, if you pay out more than what you've got and you don't accept payment from people who have money to pay you, where are you going to be after a few years? You can't, as an individual, live your life this way. It's ridiculous for the government to assume that the entire population of the nation can live this way as well. And it doesn't work. So that's what's going on. So until there's a real wake-up call about not letting our richest percentage of the population be treated like some endangered first class, until we see fairer tax structures, I don't believe that punishing people that give us our medical care, or give my grandmother her medical care, or give my veteran uncle his medical care, I don't believe that punishing the providers for providing to this public funded demographic, I don't think that punishing them by refusing to pay them or cutting their payments if they take people, how is that a helpful solution? How is that working? It just doesn't make any sense for me. Well, we're coming to the end of the hour. I've only got a few more minutes here. So I've got one pretty funny story I want to send and save to the end. There are a couple things from the natural health news. And I've been just reading through headlines here, very disappointed really about what's up here. Things like dementia risk linked to feelings of loneliness, not lack of social ties. Well, here's a nice thing. A daily dose of gratitude encourages health, happiness, and vibrancy, researchers assert. Well, we kind of know that already. Many benefits of yoga for kids. Well, we know that too, if you think about it. Is the frequency of police brutality increasing? I think there are humans that are as frustrated as we are. So, here's a funny one. Don't let your child see a psychiatrist ever. Oh, anything else good? I'm going to read this one only because I know a few people listening might find some jolly entertainment from this. The case of the disappearing sperm. French men's sperm count plummets over the last 16 years. I'm just going to read the first 3-4 sentences. This was submitted by Ethan A. Huff, staff writer, December 14th. The world is becoming an increasingly hostile place for the survival and persistence of masculinity, particularly in regards to male fertility and vitality. A deadly combination of estrogenic toxins in the food supply, harmful chemicals in the environment, and I guess I'll read a little farther. Let's see if I can pull this up. Well, we know about the estrogenic toxins in the food supply. They're talking about estrogens that are available. We don't want to be giving estrogens to our men. That they have a little bit of estrogen in their system, but this is not something they want a lot of. And if this isn't going to roll it up, I might skip it. Oh, here we go. And poor lifestyle is causing an ongoing and drastic reduction in men's sperm counts, according to a newly published study in the journal Human Reproduction, which illustrates the continuing decline of men in today's world. Well, guys, I don't want to slap you all in the face, but let's see who's the most argumentative, hostile, and violent portion of our society. Well, maybe you guys need to learn to relax a little bit. Researchers from France conducted their study specifically on French men aged 18 to 70, tracking the average sperm counts across the country between the years of 1989 and 2005. According to their findings, sperm counts among all French men in this age range dropped by about 1.9% per year on average, and by 32.3% on average over the course of the entire 16-year period. Well, we have a guest. And as soon as he decides to pick a mic, I'm going to turn him on.
Three.
Yes.
Three.
Excellent. Well, Mr. Wordsworth came in, although he's been kind of laid up with the flu. How you doing today?
Good, good. How'd that conversation? Unfortunately, I didn't get to hear it, but Dan Lawsey, you had him on earlier?
Dan had some kind of sharp things to say.
Can you update me?
Absolutely. Well, he finds the fact that people in our culture, in our society, feel it's acceptable to use this kind of violence as a way of dealing with their problems, and that it's an embarrassment to Americans, basically, that we condone this kind of and foster this kind of behavior in our culture.
We're talking about the Connecticut stuff?
Yes, we are.
Oh, wow.
He
yeah.
was pretty sharp.
You know, it's kind of sad, the irony today. I did not have my internet working, so I had to go pay my bill. But actually, by word of mouth, that news has already spread. What was it, a middle school?
Actually, if you'd like, I can give you the whole rundown.
Yeah,
I had been
sure.
trying to stay away from it a little bit, but I've
know,
been going
right?
through, I've been getting updates on the computer while I've been on the air here. So here's the story. At 9:30 this morning, approximately, in the community of Newtown, Connecticut, a 911 call was received by the local constabulary there, and it was to report a gunman in the school. At that point, the shootings had already transpired. This was at Sandy Hook Elementary, and the tragedy here is that this school only hosts children attending kindergarten through 4th grade. So we're talking about 4-year-old to 5.
So was this an
4 to 10.
adult that did the shooting?
There were many cases of misidentification, but the story...
That's what I thought. It was a kid, but it's not a kid, huh?
No, this comes out, this just came out about a couple of hours or so ago. The gunman actually had the identification from his brother on him.
Oh,
so it was
I see.
difficult to be. So they actually named the older brother as the original gunman, and it turns out to be the younger brother. It's Adam Lanza,
Yeah, I guess
20 years of age. And apparently Mr. Lanza visited a relative who lives in Newtown before going to the school, shot that relative, and then proceeded to the school where his mother was actively teaching a kindergarten class, opened fire in the class, killed 18 children on site. 2 later died in area hospitals. The 6 adults in the school were killed, the 1 adult outside, and then Mr. Lanza took his own life. So 28 dead in total so far. They're still looking for another relative.
You know what kind of psych meds was he on? Because this, all these instances where these people do this stuff, they're on some sort of prescription psych med.
Well, you know what? They really haven't been releasing much
No,
information.
you're going to find out more as things go on. It's amazing the frequency in which these shootings, this type of thing. Didn't we used? I mean, you had Columbine, and then it was for a long time there was nothing like that. Not even any copycat shooters, and now you're.
You know, that's interesting that you bring that up because I actually pulled up a story from the Irish Times today because I wanted to see what they were talking about. Not a word about the fiscal cliff. So apparently this is just an in-house joke in the United States. But they actually had an article focusing on the history of U.S. school shootings. Okay, because I caught about 5 minutes of the local news before I left, and after the shooting at the Sikh temple, and this was prior to the shooting at the spa in Brookfield, one of their staff reporters actually put together a history of the shootings in Wisconsin. Their list went back to 2005, and the amount of nationally, worldwide publicized shootings, mass killings in this state is enough to make your jaw drop.
How many?
It's been almost one every year. It was two in 2007, but we've got that Van Ving, the Korean guy, or the Hmong man up in northern Wisconsin who shot all the deer hunters.
Wow, I didn't even hear about that.
Oh, that was a number of years ago. He's life in prison.
Oh, right. Wait, yeah, now I remember.
We have the New Life Church that was meeting at the Brookfield Hotel out there. The guy opened
That was
fire.
a while ago.
21 people shot, injured. I didn't get the exact
And then the
number.
salon thing near
We
Brookfield.
have the salon, we have the Sikh temple, we have the ex-cop, the current cop in Crandon opened fire on his ex-girlfriend and her family members, some of his own friends from high school.
Wow.
We have a guy here in Delafield that killed his ex-girlfriend, his own twin brother. Actually, I think it might have been his wife, but anyway, wife, sister, brother, twin boys, his own children, and then himself. So 7 dead in Delavan. So this list just goes on.
The morbidity, it's incredible. It's incredible. You know, it's funny. What didn't make the mainstream media news was, did you hear about that guy? I can't remember if it's Arizona or New Mexico, but known terrorist ties linked to Al Qaeda, and he attempted to blow up the federal building there. And
In Arizona?
it's somewhere in the southwest.
There's one in Oklahoma. I'm sure there's one in every...
That was Timmy McVeigh,
Right.
but I'm talking about recently. This happened during this last week. It somehow missed the media's attention. Of course, I picked it up, but I just thought it was funny because this guy had known Al Qaeda links, and you would think that the media would have went crazy about that, and for some reason it was kept off the roster.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what the media is focusing on, actually. I was just going through a
A lot
wonderful...
of fiscal cliff stuff, isn't it?
We just did that. I just pulled up a Q&A on the Wall Street Journal. We just explained to our listeners what the fiscal cliff is, what it means, all that stuff. That's a wonderful point. Again, that was the Wall Street Journal, and it was listed on today's, even though the Q&A portion was actually, I believe, submitted November 29th, but it explains about the revolving, rolling deadlines that are coming up and the
Yeah, I
changes.
was reading in the Shepherd Express to just see what crap they had to say about it, and it's the same old thing. It's the same old shell game. You got Republicans, Democrats, and they're both, playing their constituents by placing the blame on each other, when really, as far as I can tell, there is no fiscal cliff.
No, it really isn't a fiscal cliff, and that's what I was trying to let people recognize the fact. Remember, we've had, 2 or 3 severe crises where the government was going to close
The
at
budget
11:59 a.m.
crisis, right.
Or p.m. We've been at that, so this is kind of the same type of a deal. No, and I'm assuring people nothing is going to happen.
No, nothing. I mean, that's a good excuse to. You got those tax hikes coming up in 2013, the Bush tax cuts end.
Actually, yeah, they end the era.
And that immediately you're going to see ramifications from that. People are going to get awfully grumpy when they have to pay these extra taxes. And I'm sorry, I didn't. I was not fond of Bush, but.
Oh, and these tax cuts he made were awful. Talk about a president getting into the Oval Office as a member of the Old Boys Club.
Right.
And that's exactly what this is. Let's give tax breaks to my croonies who are the top 2% in the United, and that's exactly what this article says. The people who are going to be impacted the most are the top two tax tiers,
Brackets, yeah.
right?
And
which
what
is none of us.
percentage- Yeah, and what percentage of Americans? I wish I knew. Like
It's like
20?
1.9 or
Oh,
it's
that
really
ridiculous
small.
huh?
It's just I could be wrong. I probably am actually, but it's hugely small. It's hugely small. And we're talking about, and I even mentioned, we're talking about people who, like CEOs who are getting 20 million a year in their contracts plus signing bonuses in excess of $1 million. And, obscene amounts of money that you can't possibly spend in a lifetime.
No, you can't. And Wall Street's still addicted to free money, like crack cocaine addicts. They're steadily, receiving it just so that they can gamble away more of America's wealth. With no sight in end. Of course, the market's completely rigged. I'm really interested. We also have the Obama Medicare insurance deal. Where when does that go in? 2014, 2013?
Well, 2013 is when a lot of these things are supposed to take place, but Obama's trying to get an agreement together at the end of this month or the beginning of the year. He's willing to accept that the cuts in payment, and this again I was expounding on this. They're requiring to cut the payments to medical providers for people who are on things like Medicare. People who would be on public assistance for medical aid. This would be retired people who had put into Social Security. This is supposed to be their medical insurance they've been paying into, and veterans.
They would cut that care?
They're going to cut the money they pay the medical providers by 2%, which means that if you are going to provide medical services for someone who is retired or taking Medicare, you're going to be punished financially, and that's absurd.
Well, not only that, let's not forget that this applies to full-time employers, that you have to have this new insurance for your full-time employees. Guess who is exempt? Walmart, McDonald's, big corporations that only run on part-time basis. So anybody that is a small business person trying to employ local people in your community, they will not be able to afford this insurance.
No, they'll be crushed.
So in other words, in the middle, again, we're having the, well, I guess it's debatable. Is the economy getting better or not? I mean, that's a matter of public opinion at this point, but it's not. And we're going to see an incredible crushing blow coming out of this because they won't be able to employ people full-time. They're going to have to skirt around it somehow. Everybody's going to have part-time. I don't know how we're going to do it, but apparently the fiscal policies by all of our leaders, Wall Street, Congress, the Senate, the president, right on down the line, none of this helps the economy. It all just makes it possible, sets the stage for a complete corporatist takeover of America. No small businesses, just large corporations running everything. It's funny because this is not exactly socialism. It's some sort of variant.
No, it's like elitism, capitalism.
Corporatism.
Yeah, okay.
Corporatism. That's
elite
what
capitalism.
I was
Okay.
trying to figure out the term for it earlier this afternoon.
It's actually on the web, yeah.
Corporatism.
Yeah.
Where Mussolini owned the, back in the fascist days of Mussolini-run Italy, the state owned the corporations. In Soviet Russia, the state owned the corporations. Here we have the corporations owning the state.
Neither works.
Well, the trend is we're going to wake up and all we're going to have available is our McJobs. That's it.
And we're not going to be able to live very well.
No, but the answer to that is we're going to put everybody on welfare, subsidize it with food stamps and whatnot. But then
there's no money for that.
But there'll be no. You're talking about middle class declining and then evaporating into nothing, where it's just we'll all be on this bottom rung, and there'll be no way to transcend from the poverty level up to, the hope and dream would be that we'd all.
It'd be very difficult.
And especially it's a kick in the crotch, it's a kick in the stomach, takes the wind right out of you when you think about, you always hear about these people that have ambition, that work hard, sacrifice to get ahead and own their own business.
Yes.
It just deflates their very desire, their will, their ability to take care of themselves. So what do we want, America? We just want corporations running everything. It's kind of like white flour. You don't even get white flour. It's mixed in with something
and it's not even food.
Diluted.
It's just white flour.
It's just white flour. And I mean, I just mentioned that. I mean, just kind of like our very existence is getting cut with prefab chemicals. It's amazing to see the next 4 years. I mean, on the one hand, the good news, the inside story is it looks like the global elite are not going to make their move yet. They're not ready. They're not in position. The main goal, as they stated back in 2012, they're still working on that. They want all of us indebted to them, to the bankers, to the central banking systems. That is the plan. Once they have us indebted, then we have no means. It becomes a matter of debt servitude.
Yeah, I was wondering how would that work?
Well, in debt servitude, you have no means to put together. I mean, take right now.
Wait a minute, isn't that serfdom?
That is serfdom. We're talking about a modern neo. I mean, they always use the term neo, meaning new.
Yeah.
Neo-feudalistic society, where basically we're going to be put into housing tenements. This is the trend. I mean, this is where
I won't like that.
a lot of people won't like that. I don't know. I mean, they're not going to get rid of all these houses, but you might have 2 or 3 families living in the one space.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're drawing close to the top of the hour, and I did find one funny thing. This also is from the Irish Times, and I don't want to pander to our audience again, but I thought it might be nice if we ended on a high note.
Let's do that, totally.
This story from the Irish Times, and this was Laura Marlowe in Washington this week. Romney, well, I don't even want to read the headline because it'll give it away. It was not the sort of victory Mitt Romney had in mind when he declared his candidacy for the U.S. presidency, but the former governor of Massachusetts finally won something this week. The PolitiFact project, run by the Tampa Bay Times newspaper of Florida, gave him its Lie of the Year award.
Really?
The project involves journalists' fact-check statements by politicians for truth. According to the Pulitzer Prize-winning PolitiFact, Romney's claim that car maker Chrysler considered moving its Jeep production to China at the expense of American jobs was the biggest whopper of 2012. Romney might have been forgiven for picking up the falsehood from a conservative website, which published a link to a conservative blogger who misread an article by Bloomberg News, but Romney turned the lie into radio and television advertisements and brazenly persisted after denunciations by Chrysler and General Motors.
So he said that they were going to move him to China?
Even after he was told it was wrong, even after Chrysler and GM, General Motors, we're not going to let our campaign be dictated to by fact checkers, a Romney pollster had warned at the Republican convention.
Well, clearly we don't have much to worry about Romney anymore, do we? But
I never realized he was a Mormon. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But.
No, but I mean, clearly the conservatives have dropped the ball. The liberals have become warmongers, with just wanting to just give in to the corporatists. It's really ironic because I don't know what Democrats stand for anymore. I don't know what Republicans stand for anymore. Honestly, they both are breaking their own party lines. They don't stand behind the same values anymore. So
no, and it's like it isn't even a question of party lines. It's a question that these people who are supposed to be representatives have kind of forgotten their role in government and what they're supposed to be doing for us. And I think that's why they are so lost, because they don't even know what they're doing themselves.
Well, it looks like Life is coming on here at
that's
6
great.
o'clock, and
I love Life.
Well, you gotta love life, but life is busy consuming food, and that's
to live
cool.
on.
It's all right, but we'll jump off the air for you here. And
so from Mr. Woodworth, and I'm glad you came in, Michael. I know you're feeling crappy today.
Yeah, actually, not only that, but I was gonna see if you wouldn't mind taking over the show for a little while. I could kind of use a break from life. I swear to God, if there was a one-way ticket off this planet to a better dimension, I'd take it. I guess there is. It's called death, but we don't need to rush that sucker.
Well, I hope that you would consider making guest appearances.
Oh, absolutely. I was just kind of, definitely. And we'll get your You're doing a wonderful job, and
Well, thank you.
I'm glad to hear that Dan's still on board, and it's really good. I mean, I just kind of honestly, America, I'm freaking depressed. I think human civilization's going down the shithole, and there ain't a jack shit we can do about it. But what am I supposed to say? You know, I'm like, sometimes I realize that I'm not reaching people through the radio. I do a better job just reaching people one-on-one, but you know, whatever. That's my own cynical attitude. Cynicism isn't going to help the situation, but I'm a little burnt. I'm a little disappointed, and I guess I have the right to be. So, yeah.
Well, you've worked very hard, and it would be inconceivable that a person wouldn't need a break. You did 3 shows a week for months.
Well, 3 shows a week for 5 months. So
And then I
basically,
came
came
on.
up to like over 50 shows and
That's
like
a lot.
21 and a half hours a month. It was some crazy, and
And all the research. It took me 20 hours just to do the 56-minute interview.
oh, I know.
sound producing is nuts.
You know what's great is when you're having fun doing it. That's the good part, you know. But when you're not having fun doing it, it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, but we better get off the air. We're taking this man's valuable, precious time.
Oh,
we don't want to delay life.
I don't think he'll mind. He's taken over for Ingrid's inspirational hour.
Oh, poor Ingrid, man. I haven't seen her.
Yeah,
in
Ingrid
forever.
has succumbed to having to get some physical ailments and some back problems and things taken care of. But I do want to say I will be changing the time of the program just because I have other life commitments. So
To
we
4 o'clock?
to 4 to 6
No,
o'clock.
that's awesome. That's 2 hours, so it's
Right,
a long
which is
time.
plenty for one
gab
person. And I will be featuring probably more interviews. As a matter of fact, I got a good lead on the state president for the Wisconsin Sierra Club. I'm going to try to get her on. Maybe we can have a discussion about gun control laws as a result of this.
You know, yeah, definitely. And, you know, if from time to time I'd love to come and sit in on
Yes,
it. I'm so glad that you're here and you got this momentum. I really think you're getting guests and getting people to interview. I think that's the ticket. And it does require energy, but
lot of
you're
work.
enjoying it, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm having an opportunity to meet people, but what's even more fun is that I'm finally able to share some of my own knowledge base with other individuals. I've
Nice.
got a number of different people who are going to be coming on who are Milwaukee residents who
That's
are promoting
great.
different
No,
art
that
forms.
is great. That's great. Seriously. All right, well, cool.
So we're going to end the show tonight
sign off.
with the Dan Dance Trio. I'm going to play a little bit of Vince Guaraldi's Ginza Samba while we shut down our tech and switch over to live.
Well, good night, Mr. and Mrs. America. I always love saying that. I forgot the guy.